Hey everybody, it's me, Mark Wiggins. Welcome to the Off the Bench show. I'm your host, Mark Wiggins, and I've got the special edition Off the Bench magazine Spotlight feature. In the Spotlight feature, I'm bringing on people from the magazine who are putting out their products. They got great stories, or they're authors, or books, entrepreneurs, and so far that is going great. Everybody loves feedback on that. And today we have with us one of the featured authors who was in the author corner, I think in the January, February, and probably the March issue as well. We have Katrece Nolen with us. Hey, Katrece, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Trying to handle this cold, icy weather. I thought I moved away from Cleveland, but appears that it is here.
Yeah, yes, it's definitely here.
Yes. So, Katrece, you wrote a book called "I've Been Diagnosed Now What." Now, we read the title, we immediately go to we're probably diagnosed. When you say that phrase, it usually refers to cancer. So, tell us about your journey and how you end up writing this book.
So, my journey, yes, the book is about my cancer journey, and that journey began about 8 years ago. 8 years ago, I had just turned 38, and I was playing with my son on the floor crawling, and I noticed that one breast looked slightly larger than the other. And fast forward to that evening, I knew something was definitely wrong. Immediately scheduled an appointment with my primary physician the very next morning. Went in, and after a exam, they thought, well, it's no lumps were detected, and they ended up sending me to a mammogram. Got a mammogram the very next day, and they thought it was nothing but perhaps some dense breasts. Nothing to worry about. Took an antibiotic and went on my way. Fast forward a few weeks later, I couldn't button my top buttons on my shirt. I knew something was definitely not right. Thankfully, when I went to see the doctor, they gave me a referral to a local breast surgeon and said, you ought to consider getting a baseline. So I reached out to them, and they, when I first contacted them, they said that they were not able to see me because my mammogram needed to be on a film and not a floppy disk. And I thought, that's ridiculous. But they gave their reasons why and said I needed to reschedule. And I had to decide then and there whether or not I was going to reschedule and wait another few weeks or insist that they see me. And I decided to ensure that I was seen that day. And so I asked to talk to the office manager. Office manager again says, we can't see you. We don't have the equipment. We need you to come back another time. And I said, no, the doctor's going to see me today. The doctor walks into the office manager's office, looks at me, says she had a few minutes to review my charts, and just looking at me, thought that I might have inflammatory breast cancer. And I was floored. Wow. You didn't want to see me, and now all of a sudden you're telling me something I'd never heard about. When we left the doctor's office that day, I went to, Mr. Google and Googled what was inflammatory breast cancer because I hadn't heard of it, and found out that it was a stage 3. It started as a stage 3 cancer. And it was the most aggressive form of breast cancer that existed. It starts at stage 3 and there's only a 30% chance of survival. Other breast cancers have about an 80% chance of survival. My family was critical to us being able to beat this. I made sure I had the knowledge, acquired the knowledge that I needed to learn about this type of cancer and what could increase my chances of survival. I told many people what was going on, and it was actually the fact that I shared with my children's dean at their middle school that she connected me with another survivor of this rare and aggressive cancer. Because of that one connection, I was opened up into a world of an online social media group for other survivors, nearly 1,000 of us. And that's where I learned where the best doctors in the world were who could help treat me. Because of that access that I got, I was able to get the treatment that I needed, and also get access to the support that I needed, others who had gone through this, and then my family, because I didn't turn down help from friends, from family, and others. We also got the support we needed. Why I wrote the book is because along the way, I met others who weren't sharing what they were going through. Perhaps there's a stigmatism in primarily the Black community about not getting help and doing it on our own. And I felt like if they just knew that help existed, in this book I share different resources, then perhaps they can get the help they need so that we can overcome these horrific disparities of Black people who get cancer, and unfortunately we die at a higher rate.
Wow, that's crazy. So, I mean, back to when you were at the doctor's office and they went to see you. I know your husband, and is the office still standing? Because I'm sure I'm sure it wasn't well received. That it was just. And again, we understand people that see so much and they're not moved by a whole lot. But your ability to persist and to see the doctor and to get that was probably the life-saving portion right there.
Absolutely, I believe so. I actually went to the appointment myself, and when they told me no, and I had that moment of what am I going to do? I actually did call my husband at work. And when he heard about me receiving that no response, he actually quickly hung up and started heading to the doctor's office himself. Yes, when the doctor came back to see me in that office, she actually mentioned having met my husband along the way. She had to calm him down a little bit. She said, "Oh no, I will be seeing her."
Oh, that's right. Don't play, because the alarm goes out. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Right.
So, but good for that you got that. So you write the book and you're going through. Did you journal while you were going through the process, or did you just put it all together after the process and felt a need to make sure other people knew what you now know?
So I journaled a little bit. I'm not the best at journaling. So I journal intermittently throughout the cancer treatment. But afterwards, when you go through it, you have this time that you're now reflecting on what you just went through. Mm-hmm. And I think as part of that reflection, and then also trying to kind of uncover, well, what's my purpose going to be? Because God saved me from something that typically is not right. I'm under age 40, getting diagnosed with a stage 3 cancer. And I survived this cancer. And to have doctors tell me that they put me as a priority because I was, 1, under 40, and 2, I was a Black woman. And they knew that the odds were against me because of those 2 factors. Mm-hmm. And I made it through, then it compelled me to want to figure out what can I do to help other people.
Mm-hmm. Talk to us more about the community. You mentioned that you found this space that was pretty much the information of all things source. So tell us more about the community and your engagement with that community.
So first connected locally with a woman, and she shared how there were other women, about 5 of us in the DMV area that they knew of, and they would regularly get together, but obviously some were going through treatment, so it wasn't a lot of ability to connect on a frequent basis. And so she then said, "Are you on Facebook?" And she shared and invited me to a group that actually, if I had tried to search for it, I would not be able to find it. So you're familiar with private groups on Facebook. So you had to be invited to it to know it existed. Mm. And she invited me to the group. And in that group, it gave me hope, because hearing that there's only a 30% chance of survival after 5 years, it starts to get you down real quickly. Mm-hmm. Depression could set in, and I think depression absolutely did set in for me. But having access to that group and hearing stories of women who had been through it 10 years ago, prior, or 12 years prior, it started to give me more hope that, okay, there's a chance that I can make it to the 5-year point, that I can make it to the 10-year plus. Obviously, in the group, there weren't not a lot of Black women. And so having seen on the site that there were a few of us, and to actually meet a lady who was a 20+ year survivor who's Black, that truly inspired me and helped bring on a better sense of hope and the fact that, what, there is a tomorrow, because there was some sadness there for a while.
I can't even imagine. So what type of information inside your, goes back to your book, what some of the things that you share with people to encourage them? I know you talk about make sure everybody goes and see the doctor, as we as African Americans are horrible at it. But what did you share inside the book that would help people to be encouraged about being more proactive in their healthcare?
So things I encourage them is that, for one, it's okay to be sad about what's going on. There's going to be a cycle that you go through, and mental health is real. It's an issue, and you need to ensure that you are getting some mental health support. Also ensure that some of your family members, myself, I had a young family, and there were resources available. And when it was offered, we tapped into it. So there was group counseling support for our children to be with other kids whose parents were also fighting cancer. That was a big help. Also shared in the book about accessing financial resources. Ensuring that your insurance company, what are some questions that you can ask your insurance provider? What are some resources that you can actually tap into that your medical professionals have? One of the biggest shocks for us was getting the bill for the first round of chemotherapy. Following chemo each day, and I shared a story, each time you have chemo, at least this first dosage that I went through, it was every week. And following the chemo, a day or so later, you come back and you get this booster shot. It's called Neulasta. And this booster shot is to make sure that the chemo doesn't affect your body so much that you can go into have infections and other type of illnesses. Then you just stay as healthy as you possibly can and continue to receive the next dosage. Well, that shot cost about $5,000, a single shot.
Oh my.
And so for them to tell us that the single shot costs $5,000 and that you have to get 6 of them, that we're in that office manager's office quickly calculating and thinking, oh, hell, what are we going to do?
Right.
Obviously, we have to foot the bill if that's the case. But it was definitely some devastating news. But then within 5 minutes, she said, but there's a program that we have access to. If you fill out this form, you can actually reduce that bill to $500.
Pass it quickly. Let's go.
And so my husband said, well, why didn't you talk about that part first? Why'd you have to tell us about 5,000 times 6 and then say, oh, by the way, you get a $500 if you just sign this form? And it didn't matter what your income was. And so, months later, I went back and asked the office manager, hey, you know what, that was a significant reduction in a bill that we were bound to have to pay. But how did you find this? Did they share this with you? And she said, no, I Googled it. She said, what I did is I took the name of the medication and I Googled buy and the name of the medication. And that's where she found a prescription program that would offset the cost for you.
Wow.
And I said, really? So years later, get a big bill for dermatology prescription for our kids, which most insurance companies don't cover it. And it was a pretty big bill. I did what she suggested, and sure enough, there was a reduction in the cost of the medication. So, it's just little things like that, tips on travel and transportation. Some people need to travel to get the cancer treatment that they need. And oftentimes they won't go because of the transportation costs. But there are a number of programs available, either through airlines, hotels, even cancer centers, that will help to offset those costs significantly.
Wow. I mean, again, the staggering information. And you think about, like all the money that's raised for research and support, that we only hear about one side of it, Jimmy fees and all that kind of, you hear one thing, like, you never ask a question like, how do you access that money? I mean, it says for research, but what you're telling me is that there's some more sources out there, and that is information that probably the average person doesn't know unless you're in the sphere of dealing with cancer. So
Yes.
yeah, so that's kind of like your is that now your new like share moment in your book, and you're out here telling people, if you're involved with this, check these things out, go look. Is that what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So what I'm doing now is not only sharing the book, but also I'm now a certified coach. So I offer services to cancer patients or those who are transitioning from cancer treatment back to new normal. I know how that transition is to trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life now that I've made it through this. It's a very traumatic time for individuals.
Mm.
And being able to transition back, but then many of us are seeking purpose. And so as a life coach, assisting individuals in being able to, figure out what's next on tap for them and their lives and their families, and how do they reintegrate into this new normal. Also doing speaking engagements, working with cancer centers, hospitals, or civic organizations that want someone to come and speak to them about, ensuring that individuals tap into the resources that are necessary for them to survive, because you can't do it alone. And so many will try to wing it or do it alone in the midst of confusion, and there's no reason to go through it in a confused state. You need help, seek that help.
Mm. So you raised something interesting. And I don't think we actually think about that, is what's called the reentry back into life. I think you have to focus on when you're healthy and treatment or whatever, and now you have to reentry back into life. What was that like for you? What was your toughest challenge?
I think the toughest challenge is the thought of the cancer returning, so a recurrence, and you go through a number of months where you're getting tested every week. You're getting poked and prodded. You're seeing your doctor on a weekly, if not bi-weekly basis, and all of a sudden they say you're done. Go on with your life, and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, like, you've been with me for like 6 to 9 months to a year. I've seen you every day. Now I got to go back and do real life. But what if this comes back? What am I supposed to be doing? What kind of tests? It's called scanxiety, is what they call it in the cancer world. Yeah, there's anxiety when it comes to getting scans and updates, and you're wondering, is it coming back now? And so that can sometimes deter you from moving forward with your life, because you're sitting there waiting for the ball to drop and for it to come back again. So it's a matter of, finding that purpose, figuring out ways to perhaps you could take the attention off yourself and help others, or, figure out some projects or some ways to be able to assist others in order to get your mind off of, that doubt. Let's remove the doubt. Let's move on with your life. Yes, something can happen. They always say you can get hit by a car. Anything can happen. Don't let your worry, don't dwell on those things. Let's move forward.
Wow. So like, you finished writing your book. How long did it take you to put the book together?
So there were some start and stops. It was actually, it probably took about 1.5 years. And that was in the midst of, working and then writing on the side. Just putting out the information that I knew that was in my brain, just putting out there. And so it really helped working with a book consultant, to try and group the things into chapters, into a story, that was, understandable and could be consumed and be, helpful as possible to others. Also, along the way, I wanted to share stories of others. So I actually feature other survivors in the book to show that, regardless of the item, so it could be, insurance, it could be the transportation challenge I talked about. It could just be advocating for yourself during the journey. We have other survivors that I feature throughout the book who just show that, we all want to get to the same, finish line, but how you get there is going to differ. No one's going to take the same journey along the same path. And I just thought it was very important to feature others who were going through various types of cancers and had different family dynamics and how they were able to, still get to the same end goal.
Well, Katrece, sounds like a very powerful book, and thank you for your testimony and your journey to help educate people now becoming a life coach and dealing in a specific niche, and as well as other people who need help, because the information you give, talking about dealing with hope and hopelessness and what's next, those are not just for people surviving cancer, that's for like everybody. Even now, these are like, we post-COVID, but there's gonna be some help needed for post-COVID right now. People gonna need some help. They're gonna need some adjustments. I have friends, my sister's a psychologist, and one of our fraternity brothers' wives is business is through the roof. Good for them, but not bad, good for everybody else. But the need is out there, so there's space for you. We're glad you are there to help and share your story. So tell everybody where we can find your book, and if you're doing any book signings or speaking engagements, or are you live anywhere, you're doing any boot camps, masterminds, what you got going on?
So my book is available on both my own website. So my website is KatreceNolen.com. So KatreCenolen.com. If you go there, you can get a signed copy, the purchase there. And other places you can find it are on Amazon, and both hard copy as well as Kindle version that you can download immediately.
All right, that's great information, and we look forward to seeing you out on the track when things get back to normal at conferences, speaking. I think you definitely have a dynamic message, so we'll have to make sure we keep up with you and let us know what's going on. So if we can help you in any way, let us know.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us on the Off the Bench Magazine Spotlight. We're featured Katrece Nolen in her book, I Have Been Diagnosed, Now What? Be sure to go out and get it. Hit her website, follow her on social media, like, support, share the message. Maybe you're dealing with someone in your family that's in cancer. Maybe you need this information too. You just started or you're in the midst of it. As you heard from the expert, the subject matter expert, get the support you need. Don't not go get support. You need that right now, and getting this book and reaching out to her could be the best step you can make at this point if you don't know where to go. So make sure you follow her. And with that, I'll leave you with this. As you all know, if you can reach your dreams with the step ladder, then they're probably too low. I'm out.